and welcome to another video. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Today's video is going to be about Nissan. They're in some serious trouble right now. Some of you may not be thinking this is a surprise because, well, when was the last time you bought a Nissan? Because, well, over the last few years, their quality has really gone downhill. Because over the last few years, I know they've had huge trouble with their four-wheel drives and their DPF systems. Their quality and customer care has been lacking. I know this from experience because my friend's bought a brand new X-Trail from Nissan, and from day one, he's had nothing but problems from the dealership and just dealing with Nissan in general. I can see why their stock pricing and the general overall sales of the vehicles have gone down, because not only do their customer care suck, it's also the vehicle's life and expectancy has gone down drastically too. I don't think it's unfair to ask for a car that can last more than 40,000 kilometers before everything decides to break. And for what they're charging for their newer vehicles, I don't feel like it's unrealistic to say, hey, can we have something that's going to last longer than 6 years? We have a new engine, but it doesn't change the fact that everything else from the 370Z and all the problems that had are still inherent in the new Z itself. Because looking at the new vehicles that Nissan are coming out with, it doesn't give me much hope. They aren't just going to go through the old parts bin like they have been for the last 10 years and hope for the best. And for those who are like, oh, but this is to keep the cost down of cars, they're still charging $100,000 for a brand new Z. I feel like if they're going to bring out a new Silvia and it looks like this, it's going to cost $200,000 plus. Because let's face it, they have no new plans to do anything with the 35. And for those who are thinking, oh, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, the thing is, they haven't fixed it or done anything really to it in the last 10 years. And more power and better suspension doesn't count, because that's what the aftermarket's been doing since it came out. Then other than just changing the price from $80,000 to, I'm pretty sure they're like $250,000 plus. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. They did do an interior upgrade where you went from like a CD player to a touchscreen. 35 more horsepower, better suspension and brakes is definitely worth an extra $130,000 on top. Even if we don't need to talk about their Halo cars, just look at their standard vehicles as well that don't even last longer than 600 kilometers. They want $60,000 for a Nissan Altima that rattles and shakes after 6 months because nothing's held down with more than freaking crazy glue. And then you'll get a recall because they went with the cheapest option for airbags and suspension, and they're like, oh no, all our vehicles aren't standing up to the standards that we have. People are complaining. Oh gosh, now we have to do a recall and it's cost us hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't even blame AI or the economy for this because they've been building a terrible product for the last 10 years. I mean, seriously, when was the last time you looked at the Nissan lineup and was like, oh, I'm excited for this car? I feel like most people are just going, oh, well, it's Japanese, so it must be reliable. Well, nope, not anymore. Because let's face it, the only thing that's really keeping Nissan alive is the enthusiast. Because we know that the only place you can buy OEM parts for the interior is through Nissan. I really do think the only thing that's keeping this company alive is the aftermarket, because people want to keep these cars alive somehow. I know I'm being a bit harsh on Nissan, but I mean, they're building an inferior product. The only thing that's keeping their cars alive is really the GTR. Because people that have owned these vehicles know that if they're from the 90s, they just fall apart. I feel like you've got to compare a Nissan to a BMW. You know you're going to have to replace parts after time, but the thing is, there's a huge aftermarket scene that's keeping it alive, so it's not as bad. But the sad reality is, if you keep comparing it to a BMW, at least you have a BMW at the end of the day, other than a Nissan. But even now, people still want the moon for their freaking 370Zs, even though they're not worth it, because they're more iconic than the new Zs, and also because of the drift tax. Because if they just keep recycling old parts onto new cars, then what the heck are you buying? You're paying all that money for something that's kind of new. At that point, if it's cheaper just to buy the older version of the car and do it up, you may as well do it yourself. But of course, people always want the newest, latest and greatest and the best thing. Who knows, maybe the Z will be a timeless classic that's going to be falling apart. But I don't see it being worth the same price as a BMW in the same price range at all. Those are thinking, oh, but this is $160,000. It's still in the $100,000 price range. But I feel like a lot of these cars are going to be having the same issue we have now, and that's always going to be hitting the drift tax. But yes, there's only going to be like a couple cars from this and they're going to maybe hit the Halo standard where it's going to be like, yes, it's worth $1 million someday, but nothing's going to compare to the 34 GTR, and that's about it. And Nissan's not really going to be seeing money from that, because I don't see anyone in 10-15 years being like, oh, an R35 is worth $1 million. Unless it's been souped up with like 2,000 horsepower. But even then, it'll probably be an aftermarket sale, so Nissan won't be seeing any of that. So I don't see what's going to be keeping Nissan alive, because most of their cars are pieces of shit anyway. I mean, I know I'm being mean, but when you have cookie cutter cars and you have cars that keep getting recalled because they're dangerous and not actually like living up to the standards that should be out. I feel like that's when you got to start calling out the business other than the people that aren't buying the car. When you have standards that are so low and they can't even meet expectations of people to last over 6 months without being recalled or having issues or, well, anything really happening to a vehicle. I mean, it's on Nissan. No one else but Nissan. And at this point, I don't even think you can do anything to save the company because there's so many cars out there that you know aren't going to make it over 5 years without needing serious work on them. They've already done the damage to their name brand. They've already done the damage, so you can't really fix it. You can't fix something that they've fucked up themselves. They wanted to be cheap, but they ended up being cheaper. They tried going for the most profit for bang for buck, but they didn't even go for bang for buck. They just went cheap for cheap. They messed themselves up for over different generations too, because you've got different generations that know that Nissan have been really terrible over the years, and then you've got people from 5 years from now trying to sell their cars, but all their parents being like, no, don't buy a Nissan, they're a terrible car. Once you start getting that nameplate, it's near impossible to get people back into the market because everyone's going to be like, hey, Mom, Dad, what car should I get? And they're going to be like, well, don't get a Nissan because we had one and after 2 weeks it was already broken. I mean, they barely have any cars in the ecosystem anyway, and most people just need to do a little bit of research on the cars and they can be like, well, these have a lot of problems, it's no point buying it. And there are literal people that love buying terrible cars, doing them up and fixing them, but what's the point of buying a Nissan if you're going to pay $5,000 for it, do it up, spend 10 grand into it, and they'd be like, well, I can sell it for $2,000 now. You can let me know in the comments below if you think I'm wrong, but I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like they have really destroyed their brand image. But I don't want to keep going on a rant. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.